We live in a moment where algorithms know what will click before we do, where AI can predict our words before we type them, where efficiency is optimized but meaning is often missing in action. In this context, your avoided question isn't just personal development. It's an act of resistance. It's you saying, I refuse to sleepwalk through my one wild and precious life. The question you're avoiding might be the last territory that's genuinely yours. Your avoided question is how you become unpredictable again, how you surprise yourself, how you stay vibrantly, messily, beautifully, human. After that clip, you know the rest is going to be good. Please take 2 seconds to click the follow or subscribe button on your podcast player. You can set it once and forget tracking down each weekly episode. This makes your life easier and signals to the algorithms that the show should be recommended to other listeners. A simple act that can have an outsized positive impact on others. Now, let's get to it. Albert Einstein said, "Don't think about why you question, simply don't stop questioning." Welcome to Curated Questions. I am your host, Ken Woodward. And these questions are not mathematical equations, but rather a resource to encounter personal reflection and growth. As Tupac Shakur stated, even the genius asks questions. Now, let's engage the questioning community. Greetings. Ken Woodward here. Welcome back to another episode of Curated Questions. Together, we engage inquisitive humans about how they use questions to navigate and make sense of our world. I am a fellow traveler and pilgrim on this journey, and I'm glad you are here. Tangled Wings by surrealist and figurative painter Sumner Crenshaw hangs above my computer. A woman, her back to the viewer, fills the lower portion of the piece, her dreamlike wings sweeping across the canvas. This favorite painting is a touchstone for who I am, and a nudge for who I can become. In the upper corner is a poem that reads, "Little did I know the precipice would become my home, because these timid wings of mine mean that I have only teetered, never flown." This poem is a warning to the timid, and I have spent most of my life teetering, never knowing the full strength of my wings. This episode dives into a question that repeatedly tests my wings and changes everything. Today's solo episode centers on what's become the heart of my work, a question that makes people stop mid-sentence, shift in their chair, and sometimes say, "Oh, damn." The question is, what question are you avoiding that would change everything? It's simple, uncomfortable, and meant to be. Because that pause you feel, that little jolt of, uh-oh, that's not resistance, that's recognition. It's your wisdom saying, yeah, we need to talk about that. In this episode, we'll explore why this question creates that pause, the neuroscience of avoidance and breakthrough, and how to build the key, the precise question that opens the door you've been standing in front of for years. But here's my promise. We won't just talk theory. You'll leave with concrete tools you can use today, at work, at home, in that relationship, on that project, with that decision you keep postponing. Let's start with a quick win. Take 10 seconds, right now, like seriously, we'll all wait together to notice what topic made you slightly tense when I said that decision you keep postponing. Just notice it. Don't judge it. We'll come back to it. But this part is essential. I'll be back in 10 seconds. Well done. That identification is time well spent and will pay dividends. I've asked hundreds of questions in this show, but this one about avoidance works differently. When I tested it alongside executive coach Jerry Colonna's powerful question, how have I been complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want, which we've discussed before, people consistently told me, Jerry's question is easier to answer. Yours makes me, stall. That stall isn't a bug. It's the entire point. Here's why. Kelowna's question is diagnostic. It says, let's inventory your role in the situation. It's like a skilled doctor asking, where does it hurt? You can point to specific behaviors, specific choices. Jerry's question quickly tumbles into equally powerful follow-ups. What are you willing to give up that you love in order to change those conditions? And how has it benefited you to maintain these conditions you say you don't want? All designed to surface complicity without triggering unhelpful guilt or shame. But what question are you avoiding that would change everything is generative. It doesn't ask you to examine what you've done. It asks you to locate what you've refused to even think. Try this. Think about a room in your house. Now, try to think about the absence of a room that was never built. Harder, right? Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. Finding the questions that you were never allowed to form. As neuroscientist David Eagleman explains it, the brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. It craves familiar patterns because they're energy efficient. When we sense a question that might shatter our predictive model about our marriage, our career, our identity, the brain often chooses efficiency over truth. It simply doesn't let the question fully form. This is remarkably similar to the literal blind spot in each of our eyes where the optic nerve connects. We don't see the gap because our brains fill it in with what it expects to be there. The avoided question is our psychological blind spot. Our brain fills the space with comfortable assumptions rather than uncomfortable truths. Psychologist Leonard Maldenow's research on the unconscious mind reveals something even more intriguing. The very mechanisms that protect us from psychological pain also protect our myths. We don't just avoid hard questions, we avoid them so skillfully we don't even know that we're doing it. But here's what I've learned from engaging the question. The moment you locate your avoided question, you've already begun to change. Not because you have the answer, but because you finally admitted there's a door. Let's take a quick tour of what's happening in your neural circuitry when you avoid hard questions. And more importantly, what shifts when you finally ask them. I promise to keep this practical and not sound like a professor. The first stop on this tour is your ancient alarm system. When a question implies loss of status, belonging, certainty, or identity, your amygdala flags it as a threat faster than you can consciously process it. This isn't a character flaw, it's evolution. As neuroscientist Eagleman notes, those threat detection systems kept our ancestors alive. The problem? Your brain can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a question about your 5-year plan. Here's the kicker. Avoiding the question gives you immediate relief. Your stress hormones drop, your muscles relax, your brain learns avoidance works. And just like that, you've trained yourself to teeter at the edge rather than test your wings. The second stop, the groove you can't leave. Eagleman also describes consciousness as the CEO of a massive corporation who only hears about problems when they arise. Most of your mental life runs on autopilot, what researchers call procedural memory. Avoided questions keep you in the groove. Asked questions introduce what's called prediction error. Basically, surprise that wakes up the CEO. This is why stepping into the moment and asking, what am I avoiding right now, this week, works so well. It's specific enough to create prediction error, but small enough not to overwhelm the system. Our third bus stop, your body knows before you do. Antonio Damaso's groundbreaking work on somatic markers, those gut feelings we get, shows that emotion isn't the enemy of good judgment, it's the navigation system. Leonard Maldonado builds on this, showing how what we call intuition is often our unconscious mind processing patterns we can't consciously articulate. That uncomfortable feeling when someone asks about your relationship, that tightness when the budget meeting approaches, that's not a stop sign. That's your body saying, important information ahead. Proceed with curiosity. So fourth stop, the dissonance dance. When your story about yourself, I'm a good leader, conflicts with reality, your team is miserable, you experience what Leon Festinger termed cognitive dissonance. You have two choices: update your story, which is hard, or defend it, which is easy. Avoidance is your brain choosing easy. But here's the insight. The right question, asked with genuine curiosity rather than judgment, creates just enough dissonance to make updating possible without triggering full defensive mode. Final stop, curiosity as the antidote. Here's the hopeful science. Curiosity isn't just a personality trait. It's a state you can induce. When you ask a clear, specific question, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation of learning something new. This curiosity state lasts about 15 to 20 seconds, just long enough for your wiser self to step forward and say, actually, let's think about this a second. So we don't need to shame ourselves out of avoidance. We can curiosity ourselves through it. And here's the beautiful connection. Curiosity is what cuts the key. It's the precise tool that shapes a blank piece of metal into something that fits your particular lock. Without curiosity, you're just standing at the door. With it, you're actively crafting your way through. Now, let me share a model I've refined through conversations with leaders, teams, and myself as I've contemplated those timid wings. 4 steps, so get your pen ready. And if you're in the car, just go along with it. Step 1, the hallway, the hum of unease. You're walking in a familiar hallway, your daily life, with a low hum of friction. Not sirens, just static. In organizations, it sounds like our strategy is fine. The team is functioning. Our culture is professional. In personal life, my relationship is stable. My career is progressing. My health is manageable. Nothing's on fire, but nothing's fully alive either. You're in the hallway. Step 2 is the door, your avoidance cues. Somewhere in that hallway, there's a door you hurry past. You know it by what you do. The topic you change, the meeting you reschedule, the person you don't call, the number you don't check, the conversation you have in your head, but never out loud. Quick exercise. What topic, if I brought it up right now, would make you want to skip ahead in this podcast? That's an indication of your door. Step 3, the lock, your protective stories. Every door has a lock, and every lock has a story. These sound rational, even noble. It's not the right time. When will it be? We need more data. How much is enough? People aren't ready. Are you? It could damage relationships. What's the cost of not asking? That's above my pay grade. Is it above your integrity grade? As Leonard Maldonado reminds us, our unconscious mind is brilliant at creating logical-sounding reasons for emotional decisions. These aren't lies, they're locks. Step 4, the key, the question itself. Here's the crucial insight. You don't kick down the door. You don't pick the lock. You forge a key that fits precisely. The key is always a question that acknowledges what's at risk, points at what's true, opens towards action. Examples that have unlocked real change. What would our best competitor assume we're too afraid to do? If my kid was watching me handle this, what would I want them to learn? Where are we optimizing for looking good instead of being good? The master key, it usually starts with, what would be different if? So, when I found my door, I found a few. Longtime listeners know I have stood at many of these doors, scared the new key would open the lock. I have questioned, what does it look like to be a modern-day freedom rider? What does my embrace of the American myth change upon the discovery of the broken treaties and massacres enacted on indigenous people? How do I hold dear to a faith when the church protected abusers and the powerful while endorsing slavery? Why is there no national memorial celebrating the resilience of those enslaved and holding to account those who perpetrated the evil in our shared American history? Just like a school janitor, my key ring jingles and jangles as I walk down the hallway, having collected many keys. But there remains plenty of room on that large ring, indicating the learning is not complete. The pressing question works everywhere humans make choices. Let me show you both sides, both professional and personal, because avoiding questions doesn't clock out at 5 p.m. Within the organization, let's look at strategy, the Blockbuster question. We know how Blockbuster avoided asking, what if people don't want to drive to the store? While Netflix asked, what if they didn't have to? The pattern repeats. Kodak avoided, what if film is temporary? Instagram asked, what if photos are social? Avoided questions create corporate graveyards. Critical questions are most important when doubling down on what brought past successes. Let's talk about culture, the Wells Fargo warning. When Wells Fargo employees created millions of fake accounts, the avoided question was obvious. What behavior does our incentive system actually reward? They measured account openings. So, they got account openings. Ethics be damned. The pattern, what you reward in private, manifests in public scandal. Leadership, the Microsoft mirror. Before Satya Nadella, Microsoft avoided asking, are we helping our customers succeed or just protecting Windows? The pattern I see, leaders complain about the very bottlenecks they create. When leaders finally ask where they are the problem, transformation begins. How about governance, the succession spiral? Boards often delay succession planning year after year. Disney, GE, Intel, the pattern is universal. The avoided question, what are we really afraid will happen if we plan for our own absence? The answer usually involves ego, not strategy. The pattern in practice. When organizations finally ask their avoided questions, I observe initial resistance, this isn't the right time, the crack, one brave voice says what everyone thinks, the flood, suddenly everyone's talking, the reckoning, the sacred cows get examined, and finally the pivot, new actions replace old habits. Now in the personal life, relationships, what am I pretending not to know about what my partner needs? Sometimes we avoid seeing what's plain because seeing would require changing. Parenting. What question would my teenager ask if they felt truly safe? Creating space for their real questions often means facing our own limitations. Health. What story do I tell about why I can't change this? Behind every I can't is usually an I'm scared to. Purpose. What would I do if I knew I was already enough? This question has launched more meaningful pivots than any career assessment. Notice, same fundamental pattern, different rooms. The question scales because avoidance scales. Consider what happened when Intel, the undisputed king of computer chips, finally asked the question they had been avoiding. What if the future isn't about PCs? For years, they had dominated the desktop and laptop market. But as smartphones exploded, Intel kept optimizing for what they knew: more powerful PC processors. The avoided question was painful. Are we a PC chip company, or are we a chip company that happens to make PC processors? When they finally faced it, the reckoning was brutal. They had missed mobile entirely. Stock prices tumbled, leadership changed, sacred cows were slaughtered. But here's the pattern I've observed when organizations finally ask their avoided question. Phase 1 is the detonation. The room fractures. People who've built careers on the current model feel attacked. Some leave, others dig in. Everyone questions whether honesty was worth it. Phase 2 is the void. After the explosion comes silence. The old story is dead, but the new one hasn't been born. This is where most organizations retreat. The void is that uncomfortable. Phase 3 is the emergence. Those who stay start having honest conversations. Sacred metrics get questioned. New experiments begin. Failure becomes data, not defeat. Phase 4 is the renaissance. The organization that emerges looks different. Intel pivoted hard into AI, autonomous vehicles, and data centers. Not all bets paid off, but they were finally asking forward-looking questions instead of protecting backward-looking answers. The lesson? The right question doesn't promise ease. It promises friction. And the physics of friction offer movement. And movement, even through storms, beats strategic stagnation every time. When you ask, what question am I avoiding? You'll hit a pause. Your mind might go blank or flood with noise or offer up something safe and small. This pause is not failure. It's your neural networks literally rewiring. If you rush through it, you'll default to one of two traps. The first trap is the clever deflection. Your brain offers up something that sounds deep but keeps you safe. I'm avoiding asking what my purpose is. Are you? Or are you avoiding something more specific that might actually require change next Monday? The second trap is the collapse. I don't know. I can't think of anything. This doesn't work for me. Translation: this is working too well, and I'm not ready. Here's how to host your pause productively. Note the physical change. My shoulders just went up. My breath got shallow. Great. Your body is on the case. Lower the stakes a little bit. Instead of change everything forever, try change for the next 90 days. Even better, change next Tuesday. Just turn it into an experiment. Getting specific with time. Turn the signature question into a right now question. What question am I avoiding this week about X? Phone a friend. Carefully, mind you. Ask someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth. What elephant do you see in my room that I keep walking around? Remember, we're not trying to solve your whole life in one pause. We're just trying to admit that there's a door. We've been at it a bit, so let's get radically practical. Here are several tools for forging your key. Don't try to use all of them. Pick one or two that make you go, "Oh, yeah, that might work." The 3 why, 1 how protocol. Ask why 3 times to get past the surface, then 1 how to force specificity. Why do we keep this meeting? To align the team. Why does the team need to be aligned? Because we're siloed. Why are we siloed? Because we compete for resources. How would we design collaboration into our resource model? Next up, the clean room question. If we had 0 history, 0 sunk cost, and 0 politics, what would we do? This temporarily disables your defense mechanisms. One startup asked us about their product line and killed 60% of features. Usage went up 400%. Next up, the compassionate adversary. What would someone who loves our mission but sees our flaws say we're avoiding? Invite this perspective carefully. Set a timer. Listen more than you defend. The two lists. List 1 is questions I ask often, your comfort zone. List 2 is questions I never ask, your growth zone. If list 2 includes questions about specific people, that's your work. The 10% courage boost. Don't aim for heroic. What question could you ask that represents 10% more courage than usual? Sustainable courage compounds faster than sporadic heroism. The what, so what, now what trio. This one was common during my days with the Navy. What question are we avoiding? So what would change if we asked it? Now what is the smallest step forward? This moves you from insight to action without overwhelming the system. Knowing your avoided question is step 1. Here's how to make the ask actually happen. The calendar test. Put a 30-minute meeting on your calendar titled The Question. Show up for it. Ask it, even to yourself. Then there's the accountability gradient. So level 1 is to write it in your journal. 2 is text it to a friend. More meaningful is say it in a meeting. Next up, build it into your agenda. And then the last one would be make it the meeting. So the question behind the question, often your first avoided question is protecting a deeper one. At the surface level, it might look like, should I change jobs? Deeper question is, am I becoming who I want to be? And then at the deepest level, it's, what do I want to be when I'm no longer afraid? Transform everything into just 90 days. Our brains can handle quarters better than it can handle forever. We live in a moment where algorithms know what will click before we do, where AI can predict our words before we type them, where efficiency is optimized but meaning is often missing in action. In this context, your avoided question isn't just personal development. It's an act of resistance. It's you saying, I refuse to sleepwalk through my one wild and precious life. Shout out to Mary Oliver for that line. As Leonard Maltino observes, our unconscious mind is increasingly shaped by systems designed to harvest our attention rather than expand our awareness. The question you're avoiding might be the last territory that's genuinely yours. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-technology. I'm pro-agency. And agency begins with asking the questions that no algorithm will ever suggest because they threaten the very patterns the algorithms depend on. Your avoided question is how you become unpredictable again, how you surprise yourself, how you stay vibrantly, messily, beautifully, human. To help you access your avoided question, I often probe deeper with these companion questions. Think of these as kind of warm-up exercises. Where have we stopped questioning? This reveals the stale zones, the meetings where everyone knows what everyone else will say, the strategies that haven't been examined since 2019, the assumptions that became invisible through repetition. What are we pretending not to know? This cuts through the elaborate performances we maintain. Every organization, every relationship, every person has at least one thing they're pretending not to know. Name it. What would be different in 90 days if we faced this? This makes it concrete, not someday, not in theory, but by the actual date. If you're listening to this on October 30th, the date of initial release, then your concrete date is January 28th. Use these to circle your avoided question. Sometimes the indirect path is the only way our defenses will allow us to get to where we need to get to. So, we're approaching the end of our time together, but this is actually your beginning. Let's return to that moment at the start. You know, the topic that made you tense when I mentioned That decision you keep postponing? Still there? Still creating that little hum of anxiety? That is your breadcrumb. Here's my invitation. Not a demand, not a judgment, just an invitation from someone who's teetered at many precipices. In the next 48 hours, do 3 things. Write down your avoided question. Don't edit. Don't polish. Resist making it sound noble or strategic or sophisticated. Just write down what you're avoiding. If you can't find the question, write about why you can't find it. That's data 2. Tell one person, not necessarily the person most affected. That might be step 10, but tell someone. Text a friend. I realized I've been avoiding asking myself blank. Let it exist outside your head. Number 3, take one micro action, and I mean micro. If your avoided question is about your marriage, the action might be put my phone in a drawer during dinner. If it's about your career, maybe update one line on your LinkedIn profile. If it's about your health, perhaps walk around the block. Not to solve anything, just to signal to yourself, I'm willing to move. Remember, we're not trying to change everything overnight. We're trying to admit there's a door, forge a key, and maybe, just maybe, listen for a quiet click as the tumblers fall into place. The signature question bears repeating. What question are you avoiding that could change everything? If that feels too big, try a right now version. What question am I avoiding this week that would change my next 90 days? Keep questioning, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when you'd rather safely stay at the precipice with wings folded. That's where the transformation lives, in the pause before your answer, in the courage to look, in the choice to finally ask what you've been so brilliantly avoiding. At the end of episodes, I normally do takeaways. This is a little bit more of a choose your own adventure kind of thing. So I've got 3 different groups and just examples for it. So for the individual, consider the morning question practice. For 1 week, start each day by asking, what question am I avoiding today? Write it down. Don't solve. Just acknowledge. Do a body scan. When you feel resistance to a topic, stop and notice, where do you feel it? Chest, shoulder, stomach? Your body knows the questions you avoid before your mind does. The friend challenge. Ask 3 people who know you well, what question do you think I'm avoiding? And prepare to be surprised. So for the leader, the team unlock. In your next meeting, try this. What question are we all thinking, but no one's asking? Then actually discuss it. The strategy refresh. Look at your current strategy. Ask, what assumptions haven't we tested since we wrote this? And there's your next sprint. The culture question. Where do our stated values and daily behaviors most diverge? The gap is where the real work lives. For the organization, the board challenge, ask this every board agenda. What are we not discussing that our successors will wish we had? The customer truth, what would our most frustrated customers say we're avoiding? Then actually ask them. The innovation unlock, what would we try if we knew we could iterate our way to success? Most innovation is killed by demanding perfection at birth. And then the meta takeaway is, don't let this become another podcast you enjoyed but didn't act on. Pick one takeaway, schedule one action, ask one question. The promised transformation doesn't occur in the listening. It's in the asking. There you go. Thank you for dedicating the time to diving deep into the signature question. If this episode shifted something in you, even just made you a little uncomfortable in a helpful way, share it with one person who might be standing outside their own locked door. The signature question lives front and center on the Curated Questions website, along with other resources to help you go deeper, because the work we do here, every episode, every conversation, it's all in service of helping you build your key. Just a reminder, that your avoided question isn't your enemy. It's your teacher, waiting patiently for you to be ready to learn. So what question are you avoiding that would change everything? If you're new to the show, welcome. Hit follow so future episodes find you. And as always, if a particular question sparks something, tell me. I read every message. Sometimes the questions you send become the questions we all need to explore. To those on the other side of the speaker, thank you for being here. Gratitude shout out to Beauty Pill for the show's music and to producer Ben Ford for the technical help. This episode was recorded on Piscataway land. Until next time, keep questioning.